reserve is, right?
Yes,
We've talked about reserves in the past, right?
I don't remember.
Okay. I do. You can determine if somebody is approved based on their credit score. The finance company will tell you what interest rate the buy rate is, correct?
Right.
And let's assume that you have a credit score of 580, and then the buy rate might be, what, 16% for that kind of credit score?
Could be very well 3.9 inches as well.
3 point, okay, depending, with a credit score as low as 580?
Yes.
Okay, well, whatever the buy rate is, that's what the finance company is going to fax back and say the buy rate's, in my example, 16%, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can still sign somebody up to a 20% contract, correct?
If the finance company lets me do that, yes.
And then that 4% difference between the 16% buy rate that they're qualified on based on the finance company's underwriting guidelines and the 4% you sign them up to, that spread, that's a reserve payment is made back to Gateway, correct?
A part of it is, yes.
Okay, so the objective data as to what the buy rate is based on the underwriting guidelines and the credit score comes from the finance company, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But the interest rate that's ultimately selected on the contract is picked by Gateway, correct?
Objection, relevance.
Correct?
Again, due to the extent of the program or that particular finance company, correct?
And the interest rate that's put in on the contract could be higher than the buy rate that was approved by the finance company, correct?
That's our ultimate goal, yes. That's how I make money, that's how the dealership makes money, yes.
Okay. And the customer's not told that, right?
Objection,
Customer's not
relevance.
told you were approved by the finance company at 16%, but we're signing you up at 20% because that's the ultimate goal. That's how I make money. You don't tell that. You don't disclose that, right?
Objection, relevance.
No, I don't.
And the person is sitting there right in front of you when you make the decision as to talk about what interest rate you're going to put in there, right?
For most part, yes.
Okay, and you know whether they're white or black when they're sitting there, right?
Of course.
So we can simply look and see if the selection of reserves has a disparate impact on black people. And the dealership picks that rate, correct?
Again, if the finance company allows us to make a reserve, we are going to try to make reserve.
Okay.
Yes.
And if you always make reserve, or if you make more reserve when black people come into the dealership, and you don't make reserve when white people come into the dealership, but they're both approved at the same buy rate, that would be potential discrimination, correct?
Objection, relevance, and it calls for a legal conclusion.
No.
Why not?
I just don't see how it's what colors of skin is anything to do with what the interest they're being charged.
You don't.
No,
I do. Black people are traditionally excluded from prime markets. They typically don't have bank accounts because they come from poor areas. They typically use money orders and other non-traditional forms of banking. They usually have bad credit because they've been excluded from traditional credit markets dominated by white people, which means they come in a credit challenge situation, which means it's much easier to exploit them by marking up reserves, which is why professors like Professor Ian Ayres of Harvard University did a study called Fair Driving in the Chicago area, and he found that black women were paying $800 more on average for vehicles in total cost than white men. And that black men were paying more than white women. That it went black women got ripped off the worst, then black men, then white women, and white men did the best.
Objection,
And that was an empirical
relevance.
statistical study that he did in 1992, directly tying financing interest rates to race. You're not familiar with that,
no idea what you're talking about.
okay?